And welcome to our final Grow Your Firm webinar for this year. Don't let your fee earners build. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, well, if we don't let them build, we're not going to make any money, which is true. But we're going to work through today what I see in firms and what firms need to do to really get some predictability in their profitability and cash flow. And what I see in firms and what those strategies are you need to be implementing so that you are earning and making the profits that you should be from the work that you're currently doing. So at FWO Chartered Accountants, we specialise in working with law firms. We do law firm accounting, profit and cash flow solutions for law firms, succession solutions and superannuation investment insurance for lawyers, including buy-sell arrangements. So we provide law firm clients with a full suite of those key strategic financial solutions. Okay, so today what we're going to be talking about, as I mentioned, is strategies that what I see in firms inhibit firms making the profits that they should be making and the cash flow that they should be generating from the work that they're currently doing. And these actions that firms already that they undertake really puts a cap on how much profit and from their revenue they generate, and really limits their cash flow. And it's not a very difficult thing to change, but it does require a little bit of a change of a mindset. So I'm going to share that with you, and I'm going to share with you some of the systems and processes that clients of mine implement all up and down the east coast of Australia and into South Australia. So this is what I see in law firms, particularly when it comes to fee earners. So most fee earners have a real disconnect between value and price. They don't necessarily value what they do. They feel that clients are price sensitive, when often that's not the case. It's more so the fee earners themselves and solicitors themselves that are price sensitive. So because of this disconnect between value and price, there is always it's always cautious. Any billing processes always err on the side of the client as opposed to erring on the side of the firm. What I also see is extremely poor client engagement and especially re-engagement, when matters have gone out of scope, not just around pricing, but also in relation to how their matter is developing. And the biggest issue that I see with law firm fee earners is the absolute discretion that firms give their fee earners, their solicitors, absolute discretion over how much and when to bill. And because of that discretion, what it does, it drives poor outcomes. Firms often think that the solution is just get more time into WIP, hit your daily billable hours of, 5.5, 6.5, whatever that might be. And whilst that is absolutely critical to driving improvements in profitability and cash flow, when your other systems and processes in your business work against that, it makes it very difficult to get predictability in profitability and cash flow. So I see this time and time again in law firms. Nearly every firm that I see, well, I shouldn't say nearly every firm that I see, but every firm that I see, this is the issue. And what it is that they have these systems and processes all based on previous perceptions of what they think the reality is, and particularly that reality in terms of how clients perceive them, when really all it comes down to is their perception of what they think reality is around what they do for clients. That connection of value and price, what the clients actually sign up for, is completely misplaced. And often driven about people making personal decisions as opposed to driving good, tight, structured systems within their business. I'm a firm believer in billing being a financial administration process in the business that should be absolutely separated from fee earners, because fee earners have got a personal and emotional connection to clients. And what we're talking about here is the money piece. And it's that money piece that needs to have no emotional connection. It needs to have it needs to be systematically delivered so that the business, the firm, can create predictable profitability and cash flow from all of the work that is being done. Firms often also have this perception that, as I mentioned, that their clients are price sensitive. And what you've got to remember is this, that the majority of the work that a firm does. So all of those matters that you open, for the majority of firms out there, most of that work comes from existing clients who have worked with you before. Most of that work comes from your referral networks or from family. So in nearly every instance, except if you're a firm that really utilizes a significant portion of online inquiry strategies, which in my experience in that 1 to 4 size principal firms across Australia, that isn't the case. Sometimes some firms are a bit better at it than others, but often it's not. It's all reliant on their recurring nature of their relationships with their existing clients and referrals from existing clients and their networks. So because of that, most clients are already making the decision that they're going to come and buy from you before they come to you, not really knowing how much it's going to cost them. And also, they really don't know what it is that you're going to do, what they're hoping that you're going to do, or what they're going to be paying you to do, is either resolve a conflict for them or to prevent a conflict occurring down the track for them. But again, they don't really know the makeup of what it is that you're going to do. But what they do think is that you're expensive, and that's actually okay. But what firms think of is, and the individual fee earners within that firm think of, they think that that is the overarching driver of whether or not of how their performance is measured, and it's not. It's about solutions. It's about delivering outcomes, and as you know, it's not always favourable outcomes for your clients. So what I see in firms is that this thinking, this feeling, this perception of misplaced reality drives all of the systems and processes within the business. And all they need to be done is tightened up so that the processes drive the right outcomes. You think of the work that you do within your firm. That work that you do follows a process. If you're preparing a will, then there's information that you've got to collect. There's questions that you've got to ask. If they're a business client that is looking at purchasing another business and you're going to do a business conveyance, there is due diligence processes that you go through to make sure you address all of the necessary issues. If you're taking an action by the courts, there's court processes that you've got to follow. All of these things from an operational perspective happen in terms of managing your matters, and they are all process driven. Your financial side of your business must be just as systematic as your operational components of your business. You structure the systems within the operational parts of your business to minimize the risk and to maximize a predictable outcome as much as you can for a client. Nothing slips through the cracks. That's what you've got to do with your financial systems. Those financial systems have to be just as tight, because if they are tight, you then minimize the risk. And that risk that you are minimizing is leaving revenue on the table when you've done work for clients that you should be billing them, making sure you get paid at the earliest possible time, securing the financial future for your firm so that you can grow and develop and achieve your goals. So that's what I see in law firms everywhere. I go and work with firms that need help fixing all of these things. Um, so rarely do I go in and start working with a firm that hasn't got these sort of issues. It never happens because these are the deep-seated issues that have existed within law firms, and I must say within most professional service firms, um, as long as I can remember. Okay, so for me, the number one ultimate profit killer is discretion. And discretion, basically, I define it as, that ability to make your own decisions around what you're going to do. And really, often without, without really accountability. So if we think about the outcomes that we're wanting to achieve, most of the time our outcomes of improved profitability and cash flow, which always stem from the relationship between our direct labour costs, so the cost of our solicitors, our legal support people. So the relationship between that labour cost and the amount of revenue that generated from it. We've got to make sure that we're focused on what the drivers are that produce those outcomes. And in most cases, we're getting unpredictable revenue. Through my numbers KPI monitoring system, I see with my clients every month what their amount of revenue is that they're billing their clients compared to their budgets, and their budgets being based on their capacity, the amount of time that should be being generated or worked on client matters, and the amounts that are actually being generated on client matters that ultimately at some point should end up as being billed. It's a completely separate webinar, and I've got plenty of them on our website at fwoca.com.au if you wanted to go and have a look and search in there. I've got webinars where I've looked at that topic of how you drive your average rate up. But in most instances, I see firms with this lumpy revenue. It's never consistent, even though the number of hours that they're paying people is consistent month in, month out. The challenge is the number of hours that actually go into WIP, the number of hours that then get billed out of WIP at what rate drive the revenue. So the outcome that we're seeing is unpredictable revenue. And what drives that unpredictable revenue is the behaviours of all of the people within the business. And those behaviours are discretionary behaviours. They're the behaviours where people can effectively do what they like to do. They can determine, how much time they put into WIP, what matters they work on first, what matters they work on second, what matters they just put down in the bottom of the too hard basket. They what amount we're going to bill and when we're going to bill it. And all of these things driven actually by how people feel and how busy they are, which isn't conducive to good, strong financial management systems. But what drives those behaviours is the structure of the business. And that often when you've got discretionary behaviour producing unpredictable revenue, which then drives poor profitability, which then drives lumpy and unpredictable cash flow, is a lack of systems. There might be some systems that say, yeah, we've got to bill every client regularly. But those systems aren't structured and adhered to within the business. They're left to be, it's discretionary whether or not you apply them or not. The biggest discretion that I see in firms starts with cost agreements. And there is no cost agreement that I see goes out to a client that doesn't say, here's the work we're going to do, here's an estimate or fixed fee, this is the amount we're going to charge you, and this is how we're going to regularly bill you. Now, it might be buried somewhere within the cost agreement, but most cost agreements say we're going to bill you on a regular basis. It could say monthly, some firms even say fortnightly, but it's going to have on a regular basis in there. But what happens is and also it says in there, we're going to, if we go outside of the scope, or if it's going to be more, then we're going to re-engage you. We're going to give you an update as we're going along. That basically, the cost agreement is the fundamental structure for how you set your financial management systems up. It's the terms of trade. It's what your client signed to say, yes, I'm asking you to do this work for me, and I'm acknowledging these as your terms, and I expect you to follow and bill me in accordance with them, and I'll pay you in accordance with them and do the work in accordance with them. But what firms do is they just ignore it. Because they ignore it, they then get unpredictable revenue. And because they keep ignoring it, they say it's okay to ignore it simply by the behaviours of the principals and also by the behaviours of the employees or the fee earners, which then just is a self-fulfilling prophecy that you're never going to be able to get any structured, predictable revenue, profit, cash flow happening. So what we've got to do is we've got to turn that on its head, and we've got to think, okay, if we want to get outcomes that produce predictable revenue, which then drive predictable profitability, which then drive predictable cash flow, we need our behaviour to be non-discretionary. Now, there are certain actions and activities within a business that must be complied with every single time. Financial management is one of those. Now, God love lawyers and law firms. Generally, you are all hopeless financial managers. Great at the law, but hopeless at financial management. So God love you because you guys keep me in a profession. But in saying that, you get it on the side of how the work gets done, but you don't follow it on the side of how your financial management needs to work. So you've got to create behaviours around financial management that are non-discretionary. And the reason for this is because cash is so important. If you don't have cash, you can't run a business. If you have poor cash flow, it drives, again, all of the wrong behaviours in the business that aren't conducive to growing a sustainable, highly profitable business. So you've got to think about that. What are the behaviours we need? We need non-discretionary. So what's the structure we got to build that drives those behaviours? We've got to build tight systems, or we've got to have systems that are defined and in place, and that the activities of the business are driven in accordance with those systems. Now, the worst people to manage those systems are fee earners, are lawyers. The reason for that is they're lawyers. They're there to do the work. They're there to do production. They're there to manage the client's relationship. They're there to deal with client stress, issues, emotions, all of these things. The last thing on their mind is the dollars. Solicitors in your firms all get paid their wages as they're going along. Principals of firms have to wait. So they're going to keep getting paid, whether they bill or not. And firms get so busy that they ignore that component, or they're reactive to it in that cash is tight, let's get those bills out, or my goodness, our debtors have blown out to 90 days. Let's go and focus on collecting those, instead of the tight systems and structures that make sure that debtors don't blow out, that make sure billing happens on time, that happens more regularly in smaller amounts, that clients find easier to pay, that we have tight trust systems within the business, and so on. So the message here is, if you want to get a predictable revenue, profit, cash flow outcome, you need to focus on the systems and make them effectively mandatory in the business, that this is how we do it. Remove the discretion, remove the personal preference, how principals and how fee earners think about what's the right time or wrong time to bill a client. The right time to bill the client is in accordance with the costs agreement, and you should do it because that's what the terms of trade are that the client has signed. You are the ones that are stopping that happening by not having systems that drive non-discretionary behaviour. Okay, so what you need to do is change your mindset. What I mean by that is blame the system, not the people. So if you're not getting those outcomes, go back to the systems. What are the systems or the structures that we've got in place that are driving those wrong behaviours to produce the outcome? Want a different outcome? Create a different structure. So we change the mindset. Blame the systems, not the people. But start with your mindset even higher than that, and just acknowledge that the reality that you have around around what you perceive clients to think isn't real. And I've got years and years and years of experience of working with clients where we sit down and I have this conversation with the principals of law firms, and I get them to do a few things like, stop sending out itemized bill every month instead of at the end, bill more regularly, bill, if it's in WIP, just bill it, all of these sort of things. And I get, what if, no, our client says, no, it's not, rubbish. And then, what if we get pushback from clients? Say, just run with it and you'll see. Very rarely does it ever have any impact from a negative point of view. It generally means they bill faster, they generate more revenue, they get their cash flow up. But clients don't push back because they already have the expectation that that's what you're going to do, because that's what we've signed up for. So it's not about what your perception is. It's about the systems that you've got in your business that the people are working within that provide discretionary abuse of that system, which you need to change. Because what you've got to remember is that most people need structure and most people want to achieve. You employ good people at your business. Most of them are good lawyers, the vast majority, and they need structure to operate from within. Most people can't make things up as they go. They need the structure. They need systems. They need processes. Most people want to be positive. Most people want to be proactive, but their systems and structures don't allow them to be, because often they can't. But we sort of require that structured behaviour from people to do it in an unstructured environment, which means it's very difficult for them because the gene pool is very narrow around those people that can develop and live within their own structure from within an unstructured environment. So change your mindset, focus on the systems. So what does all this mean? And I'll come back to this very shortly in terms of some systems and processes and things you can focus on within your business. But first, I want you to think of these 3 rules of strategic change, and they are critical to your change in your mindset, because these rules give you a framework for working out what it is that you need to be doing. The first thing is the serenity prayer. Now, some of you may or may not have, some of you may have heard this. I think you probably all have to some extent. But the serenity prayer, I'm not religious. It's just a great contextual little prayer. And it goes like this. Grant me the courage to accept what I can't control. Sorry, grant me the serenity to accept what I can't control, the courage to change what I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So when it comes down to what you need to implement in your business, only focus on the things that you can control. So you can actually control the basis upon which you issue your fees to clients. You can change your system. You can mandate how that happens within your business. You can drive that change. What you can't control is non-compliance, but you can control your response to non-compliance. You can control how you hold the firm and everyone in it accountable for compliance with systems and processes. So you can choose to do a bill to a client every month if you choose. You can choose not to accept deferred fee matters for clients as a standard process, on say estate administration matters or on family law matters. You can choose that those type of matters are only an exception. You can choose whether or not you require clients to put money into trust. You can choose to put a lock on a client matter and not do any more work on it when they're outside of terms. You've got the ability to control all of these things, but you've just got to decide on which ones you need to focus on first. But don't focus on anything that you can't control. Secondly is Einstein's definition of insanity, but in reverse. So Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, I look at that in reverse. So do something different to get a different result. So if you can remember back on that slide I had up earlier around, what's the outcome? So that's the result. What do we want to do differently? We've got to have a different structure. So focus on what you need to change, but what you're changing should only be what you can control. Only focus on those things that you can control. Change them, do something different, you get a different result. But then most importantly, focus on the majority, not the minority. Most systems that I see within law firms are designed around the squeaky wheel. You know, those clients that, or that small occurrence of bad outcomes that might occur. The reality is that the majority of clients pay their fees. The majority of clients don't complain about their fees. The majority of matters get completed within a reasonable time frame. The majority of times solutions are provided for clients. They're all the things that are in the majority. So if you're looking at getting a strategic change, meaning getting a different result, focus on those things that you can control that relate to the majority of the clients and the matters that you can do differently to get a different result. And if you focus on those things, then you can get exponential growth within the business. My experience is that there's at least 15 to 20% of additional revenue that's left on the table as a result of poor engagement, poor time recording, and poor billing processes that your discretionary behaviours that happen in the business result in. Tightening those things up makes a huge difference. So think about that. 3 rules of strategic change. Focus on what you can control, do something different, but focus on the majority. Okay, so what are we going to do to implement this? So here's some ideas, and I'll share some experiences with you as well. So the first thing is around fee earner expectations. And I think from your point of view as principals of the firm but also with senior practitioners and practice managers, CEOs, all of you who are online today. The first thing is I think you need to change your expectations with fee earners. Fee earners are there to do legal work. Fee earners are not there to be managers of finance. Fee earners are there to do the legal work. Fee earners are there to engage with the clients. Fee earners are in there to do the work within the expectations of clients around fees. But hey, there is no 2 matters that are exactly the same, and everything that's provided is generally an estimate. Now, you know, people say, well, we're fixed fees. What about fixed fees? Well, the thing is with fixed fees, again, most matters vary. So you could have got the ability, say with the conveyance, you know, if it was a standard conveyance, which very rarely it ever is, and nothing goes wrong, or there's nothing that sort of takes more time, or there's not some delay, or something is uncovered. So you've got the ability to control how you bill a client, then how you engage a client. Here's our baseline, and then here's a list of other exceptions that if they happen, this is what the fixed fee is for these other amounts, or we're going to bill you on a time basis after that. You've got the ability to control those things. But what your expectations are of clients, of your fee earners, is to do the work, but also to be responsible for tracking the amount of WIP against that. You know, they still have their expectations around the number of billable hours. So again, you've got to have structure in your firm around how you focus them in on what's expected. So putting that to one side, one of the first expectations is around client re-engagement processes. So the thing you need to have within your business is a clean WIP and clean matter balance report. But when WIP plus when what's billed plus the WIP on a matter gets closer to the estimate, so maybe at 80%, then it's the fee earner's responsibility to look at that and say, have I got enough room left in the estimate for this matter to be completed? And if not, then I need to re-engage them. But from a discretionary perspective, you don't just leave that up to the fee earners to do. You build a system within your business that drives that reporting out of your practice management software every week, so that say, for example, anything that's 80% of the estimate has to be reviewed. And then you have an accountability system in your business that makes sure it is. Now, the ultimate accountability system is that we bill what's in WIP. So if you've got an estimate in WIP for $6,000 and you've got a bill that's going out to the client for $9,000 and they haven't been re-engaged, well, that solicitor is going to get a call from that client to say what's going on. But if you get the structure right around those sort of things and build the right culture around that, and that client's been re-engaged already, then bills can just go out. So really important, that piece. It's really important to get that strong re-engagement process happening, but not leave it up to your fee earners to instigate it. Change the context of what's in WIP. So there's a couple of things here. First thing is, and I've got a webinar on this recorded on our website, fwoca.com.au, around stop doing itemised bills. In a lot of firms, there's this incredible amount of time spent sending itemised bills out to clients. The reality is clients don't want them. But by doing itemised bills, what it does, it creates a whole range of wrong behaviours in the business. What it does, it means at the point in time of billing that you're looking for things to write off and take out of WIP. At the point in time of time entry, that people are choosing whether it's billable or not. Should I put it in or not? Because they're massaging their time to align to that estimate because they know that the client might give them a call. What was that phone call about? It doesn't happen that often. The reality is, if a client wants an itemised bill, you've got to provide it to them, but it's their request. So the context, changing the context about what WIP is about is a real education process. And look, as accountants, we're the ones that invented time costing. But what time costing is about is to understand the allocation of costs. So in a law firm perspective, time costing is really about what is the labour cost that we should be allocating to that particular matter. It's transformed over time into using that for billing. But at the end of the day, if you want to make decisions in your business that are around pricing and around, efficiencies and processes, from a financial management point of view, you need to know what the costs are. And those costs, and I'm not talking revenue, what you guys call costs, I'm talking about the expenses. We need to know what the expenses are on each matter. So changing your perception around of your fee earners around what WIP is. So it's not just banging your head up against a brick wall, 5 hours, 5.5, 6, 6.5, put it into WIP. It's about saying this: what's not chargeable. What we don't put into WIP is when we bill a costs agreement or anything to do with engaging clients. We don't put in anything about preparing fees, or we don't put in there about any cost disclosures. We don't put anything in there around fee inquiries from clients. But everything else is work that we do on it. We then work out what our billing processes are that determine how much we actually bill. And we get our systems to work to support us around that. But what we don't do is we get our people to say, we need to know what's being spent on it. Don't worry about billing. You're not going to have to do anything about the billing because we're going to remove that billing process from you. More on that in a moment. And then the other key thing is daily timesheets. Daily timesheets are an absolute must in terms of fee earner expectations, because they capture all the time that has been spent so that we can understand the costs. And there's a huge leakage that happens. The key is do your timesheets. And some of these great systems, like take for example, you got Smokeball and Evolve Go. There's a couple of examples there. Those systems, My Times is another one. Those systems enable capture of activity that promote more time recording, more activity recording. on matters, which is great. The work is being done. You should be billing clients for it. But unless that happens on a daily basis, things get forgotten. So first implementation strategy must always be around aligning your fee earner expectations around what's expected and what they've got to do. So do the work, but what we really need you to do is record all of your time every day and just do that because we need to know what work is being done. We don't need you to determine whether or not something's billable or not. Here's our policy. Here's our process. That's what goes in. Our what's not chargeable policy is so much easier than telling people this is chargeable and this isn't. If it's on the what's not chargeable policy, cost agreements and disclosures, billing, fee inquiries, everything else is goes on a timesheet. So put it on there. How we bill it's a separate discussion. That is something that is then a financial decision. Okay, and here's the big one: changing billing to a finance administration function. The firms that do this experience the following outcomes: better cash flow, better profitability, more time for the fee earners to do work because they spend less time doing fees, equals better cash. That's the outcome. Behaviours become non-discretionary. So how do you go about doing that? What you should do is for every matter, it gets set up within your system under a billing structure. And it's allocated to one of these three. It's either a deferred matter, meaning it can only be billed at the end, take PI, for example, or an exception, say a status administration matter, where there is a property and there's no money anywhere, and the firm has decided to do that matter as an exception. Staged is anything that is reliant on a stage occurring. Now, again, this really should be kept to a minimum. I put conveyancing in as a staged billing structure, because even though it generally gets billed at the end, it's triggered. This is about the trigger of billing. This is what this point is about. What's the billing trigger? The billing trigger is that conveyance is settling, and we've got this process and we get paid on settlement. Everything else is monthly. Sorry, another example of a staged bill is for, say, doing a will. And that there is a fee that goes out at the time of the draft will being sent to clients. Then if there's more work done on it after there's another bill gets done later on it. But what this billing structure does, it creates the triggers, and you can then build your triggers from within your administration system to say, here's the trigger, that's when we're billing. Everything else is not deferred or staged as monthly. So with that being said, your monthly is your catchable. It's the thing that drives most of that do and charge work. You then need to auto-generate draft fees. So as we see as you see within your technology world, in your practice management world, your systems moving more and more to more cloud-based systems. There's more functionality that is able to be provided. You're able to create more simply workflows that then auto-generate draft fees to be prepared. And those draft fees are then linked back to, say, your billing structure. So if you're a monthly billing cycle, then it might be on the second day of the second week of every month that there is automatically a fee that is raised on that matter, that is created in draft that goes for approval, so that you're not relying on your fee earners to grab a list, go through and have a look and make a discretionary decision around what's going to get billed and what isn't going to get billed, particularly stopping that decision not to bill because I've just got a few more hours work to do on this work and I'm going to get that done tomorrow and then I'll send a bill out, and then you get to the end of the next month, still hasn't gone. So auto-generating draft fees that then get sent to clients. There still needs to be approval and review processes, but you build your system so that it does that, maximizes the amount of revenue that goes out. And take the philosophy, if it's in WIP, then bill it. So I know I said before, when it comes to time entry, get people to put their time in. If what's not on the, if you decide that within your business that taking a file note is not chargeable to a client, then you mandate that across the business. So that means that if somebody's gone and put recording a file note in there, you don't go looking for it to take it out, because they should just follow the rules. What you do is it gets billed because it's in WIP. But that's an exception. Again, focus on the majority. Provide training, manage expectations. But if it's in WIP, bill it. Stop writing off. Clients expect you to be expensive, so stop disappointing them. And stop issuing itemised fees. It just takes so much time correcting spelling, looking for entries that shouldn't be there. All of those things say to me, well, you're running an undisciplined ship. You need to get discretionary behaviours off the table. Hold people accountable to doing what's expected of them within the business. So to recap, the firms that make the biggest change in their profitability and cash flow is when they let their lawyers just be lawyers, and they stop their lawyers trying to be financial managers. They're not. They're hopeless at it. They have too much emotional connection and disconnect, emotional connection with clients, wanted or unwanted, disconnect of what the value is around price, disconnect around what they perceive their value to be and what the client perceives their value to be. And all of this is based on this perception that's not real. So what you've got to do is you've got to build your systems and processes from a billing and cash flow perspective that align to your cost agreements, that align to what your terms of trade are, and that benefit the business, not the client. That is, you are a business, you're not a charity. So lock it in. Change what you do. Focus on what you can control. Do something different. Focus on the majority. Remove discretion. So hopefully that's been a bit of an insight into some of those things that you need to be focusing on in your business. If there is one thing that you do out of this, it's changing your billing into a finance administration function and removing that burden of that from your fee earners. Recalibrate your thinking, change your mindsets, and you'll start earning predictable revenue, profit, and cash flow. So as always, at the end of these webinars, I always open up an offer for the first 5 people to email me at matt@fwaca.com.au for a no obligation free 45-minute online meeting. We can discuss your fee earner processes and how that works within your business, or anything else that you might like to discuss from your law firm's perspective. You can go to our website, fwaca.com.au. We've got, and click on our insights. We've got a whole pile of prior webinars on many topics, financial topics, for you to digest, and other articles and information within there. As I said, this is our last Grow Your Firm webinar for the year. So for all of you who have participated today, and if you're a regular attendee at our Grow Your Firm webinars each month, thank you for your patronage throughout the year. For those of you who are heading away over Christmas, please have a safe and happy time, and we'll see you in the new year. Thank you very much.